This time we're talking about Tower of Dawn, which is the sixth book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. And we have all read this one. It will include spoilers. Is that fine with you guys? That way we don't have to filter ourselves.
Because who's really gonna? Yeah.
So I read this latest, so I'll do a quick synopsis. It starts out with Chaol and Nesrin. They had just arrived in the southern lands, and the whole purpose of the trip is to get Chaol to walk again. He's going to meet with the healers with the possibility that they're able to help him. And then second is purpose of the trip is to get them to the country to support them in their war and help get Terrasen? Yeah, help get Terrasen forces to take back the land. But as the story goes on, it starts out with Chaol, who meets Yrene, his healer, who's the healer on the healer heir. And they initially hate each other. And he's dating Nesrin, kind of, but it's kind of it's
they're friends with benefits.
Yeah, they're friends with benefits. Yeah. I don't know.
You can just tell there's not a huge connection there. It's more out of they feel like they should be together, but they don't necessarily want to be.
Yeah, and they don't really have anyone else, so they just stay together.
Mm-hmm. And then Nesrin she's kind of being salty, and then she starts hanging out with Sartek, who is one of the prince or the king's sons. And you can kind of guess they start to have some sort of relationship. And then Yrene and Chaol get together, and he starts to be able to walk again. They figure out, big aha moment, I think, from this book, is that they figure out that the vows are actually parasites, and they can retract them from the body with a healer. Yes. So those are the big touch points. Andrea, what'd you rate it?
Okay, so I rate them on series. I rated the whole series A+. This book, B-. Not like Chaol, and I even researched how to not read this book, but it was there's information, you must read it, and I'm because the one before it ends on a cliffhanger, so you're you really want to know what happens, and then this book is totally not in the same area. It just goes to Chaol and what's going on with him, and you have to read this whole book to get to the next part. And I'm okay, well, and Chaol drives me nuts. He got slightly better. I like his girlfriend, but I would give this one a B-. It was my least favorite of the series just because Chaol is stupid and just, can't stand him. But he got better though. I felt kind of bad for him for a while. And then he kind of snapped out of his moody attitude. And then he got better. And I didn't hate him so much after he quit being so grouchy. He was so grouchy. He was always laughing at everyone. So it's that was a turning point for him. It was okay, he's not so bad now. He's just whiner.
I did think he was a bit better in this book, with the whininess, than he was in the previous book 4 and 5. Super annoying. This one, he did get better compared to those two. But
yes, I would agree.
Liz, what did you rate it?
I gave it a C- because it sucks. I just hate Chaol. I hate him so much, and he maybe he got a little bit better, but that was such a low bar. He's still the worst character. He's still super whiny. He's still in that blanket. He's down all the time. He's negative, and he feels sorry for himself. I just don't like him, and I don't enjoy reading about him. I tried to read this book. It took me months, right? Because I couldn't get motivated to read it. I texted Andrea, I don't know how many times, and I'm just can I just not read it, please? And she just kept being no, you have to read it to get the ending. So I read it, but I'm still mad at that I had to read it.
He's a giant pity party, the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
yeah.
Chaol.
And I'm sorry, but his life isn't even that hard.
He is in a wheelchair.
He's best friends with the king, right? He got captain of the guard like super young because he was friends with the prince at the time, right? Cruising through life, sleeping with the king's assassin, having a good time. Then becoming part of the resistance and sleeping with like his secondhand person, you know. Like, yeah, he's in a wheelchair, but he's not in pain. He gets to travel away from the war, right? To try to take care of himself. Like, he's fine.
You bring up a lot of
Zero sympathy.
Oh man. Well, I actually rated this a B plus. Which
You're wrong. You're both wrong. The only acceptable answer is C minus.
I do think that's one of your lowest ratings, Liz, of anything we've done.
I was mad the whole time I read it.
It's so long. It's just like you just don't want to read it. You just want to get to the next thing. So it just seems more drawn out.
It is long. It did take me quite a while to read this one. I would say probably like 3 or 4 weeks, which is the longest of a Sarah J. Maas book. So definitely in the B realm. The saving grace for this book, well, my history is an OT. Like I just love that part of it, like the healing and the movements and like the saddle, like adaptive saddles, and like I found that to be the wheelchair, how they incorporated those things into a different realm or like maybe more like medieval times. I thought was kind of fascinating to learn about the healing side of it. And so I would say the first 400 pages were pretty bland. Like not a lot was happening. But I really enjoyed the last 200 pages where there started to be action scenes. I thought those were written really well. Basically, from when Urine started to kind of do some secret detective work of like looking into the books to then going on her birthday excursion. Like from the birthday excursion to the end of the book, I really liked because it was like moving and it was written really well. But out of the whole series, I get why we need to know about, the parasites, and I know we need to hear that side of the story. So you do have to read this one, but I like out of all of them, definitely my least favorite of the series.
Or any Sarah J. Maas book.
Yeah.
My least favorite so far of any of them.
Yeah.
But it's like the writing was still good, right? Like it's still like a Sarah Maas book. But like just the character of Chaol, like sucks. I liked learning about like the spiders and more of the history of things. Like that was cool.
I liked Irene, whatever.
I call her Urine.
Yeah. I thought she was a cool character. The better half of Chaol.
I thought it was so funny when she pushed Hazar in the pool. That was one of my favorite parts in the whole book. And I definitely didn't guess that Duva was the Valg. Like that didn't cross my mind at all.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. I liked how do you say her name, Nesterin?
Mm-hmm.
I thought like her side story with like the prince was really good. I liked that too.
But only after they went to the mountains. Before that, she was annoying.
Yeah.
I thought she was like sulky and just really poor communication. Like you should just talk with Chaol if he's bothering you, or say something instead of she was like being sultry the whole time. But after the mountains, super super good side of the story.
Wasn't the people like in the mountains like the fighting force? That was like a lot like the Alarians.
Mm-hmm.
Like out in the mountains, kind of like off by themselves, like still part of the country, but not like their own culture, right? And like centered around like battle and training. That was really cool.
I like that. I also really liked Bort in Euron. Why are you laughing like that? I'm not done with Kingdom of Ash, so don't spoil anything. But I liked them.
I can't remember what happens in Kingdom of Ash with that.
I I can't remember the books
Yeah.
apart from each other. So I have to like read a synopsis. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's what happened.
This one was a bit easier just because it was in a completely different land.
Yeah.
But
And it was smaller too. It's not.
it's true.
All right.
Okay. Well, that is our recap of Tower of Dawn. Unfortunately, yes, you do have to read it. Just power through. It's got some good nuggets, but that's about it. Some good action too.